but you downshift, you step on the gas, it's like an Italian opera. 120 miles an hour like that. It's just so seamless. Welcome to another episode of Jay Leno's Garage. This is my 1969 Lamborghini Espada. This is the one we just finished the restoration on. I bought this car back in 1986. It was an interesting choice because I was looking for two cars. One car I looked at was a mid-60s Ferrari 330 GTC. At the time in 1986, that was $28,500. And this car was $26,000. And I thought, the Ferrari's $2,500 more. This has got more room. You can take 4 people, more horsepower, V12. Well, the Ferrari also a V12, 5-speed. I always kind of liked these. And back in 1986, that was a huge amount of money, $2,500. So I said, I'll get the Espada. 20 years later, Ferrari's worth like close to $1 million. These didn't go up a whole lot. But now they're starting to appreciate. But see, it doesn't make any difference because if you like something, that's really the criteria. This was designed by Marcello Gandini, who did the Miura, of course. And this was called the Italian Rolls Royce at the time. It was a 4-seater supercar, and truly a 4-seater. This is still the only Italian car I don't have to have the seat all the way back to drive. Actually move it up a little bit because, I mean, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, anybody, a 7-footer could drive this car. There's all kinds of room in it. And it's just a wonderful road car. You know, this is one of those polarizing vehicles. People either love it or just hate it. I've had people come here and go, oh, I love the look of this. Oh my God, how sexy. And other people go, that is the ugliest car I've ever seen. So, but you know, that's what design should do. It should inspire some sort of passion. I mean, how many cars you see that are just boring, SUVs, you walk right by them, they're neither good looking or bad looking, they just look. Whereas this, you either love it or you hate it, and I just happen to love it. It's 4 liters. This was the most successful Lamborghini ever produced up until the mid-70s. They did, what, 1,221 of these things in Series 1, Series 2, Series 3. This is sort of a Series 2 with some 1 stuff in it. Still had the Miura wheels on it with the knockoffs. I just love this thing. About 2 years ago, I noticed I was starting to get a little rot down by the quarter panels, and, you know, the electric was starting to go, I smell smoke. Okay, let's just tear this thing down. Now, about 10 years ago, we had done a mechanical rebuild on it, so I didn't need to touch the engine or the transmission. I just kept that in place. And we just did a full cosmetic restoration. We did the seats in the original style leather and did the whole deal. And it's just a wonderful car. Well, let me show you what you have to deal with when you tear one of these things apart. Okay, here's an example of the wiring. Look at this. Oh my God. I mean, Italian wiring in the 1960s, it's really bolognese spaghetti. That's all it is. I mean, it's just wires going in all different directions, and the wire is red at the beginning and green at the end, and somebody spliced. I don't know whether it came from the factory line. I don't know. I mean, but it was a nightmare trying to get everything sorted. When you have an exotic like this, you always want to have a battery disconnect switch, because a lot of these early Italian cars, especially the Miura, the wires run along the frame of the car. And as the car goes down the road, the wire can move back and forward, maybe touching the metal, rubbing the metal. And after 20 years and, you know, 50, 100,000 miles, whatever it might be, there's a good chance that wire could rub through and short out on the chassis and start a fire. And that's what happens. You always want to carry a fire extinguisher when you have one of these. I've never had a fire with this thing, but the one day I do, it'll be the day I don't have a fire extinguisher with me. Well, let me show you some of the body prep. Here it is in the sanding booth. You can see the floor there needed some fixing up, a little bit of rust on the floor. It was a good, solid car. This being California, I don't drive it in the rain. I never wash these cars. I just wipe them down all the time. So consequently, there wasn't a lot. Any corrosion that was there prior to '86 when I got the car, and it just sort of kind of festers a little bit. But it's a great vehicle, 4-liter V12. You know, David E. Davis, who had Car and Driver magazine, has said everybody should drive a V12 car at least once in their life. And it's so turbine smooth. this is just a wonderful high-speed road car to drive. I just love these things so much. And the fact that you can take 3 other people with you is the amazing part. You know, this car really looks amazing when you see it on the road, especially next to modern, you know, SUVs that are this high. It just looks like a snake going down the road. I think it's just the coolest looking thing. And it's not a car I would modify in any way. I've never seen anybody take an Espada and make it look better looking. I mean, whether it's the dashboard, the wood steering wheel, it's still got a lot of the classic lines and classic elements of the 1960s sports cars, the great Italian cars. The huge pie plate instrument, you know, the tachometer and the speedometer. The switch gear is all original. It's really a lot of fun. And of course, I think one of the most beautiful wheels ever, these Lamborghini magnesium wheels. And it's a hatchback. Let me show you. This opens up. You got a little switch down here. As you can see, you can open this up. We put new hydraulic struts in there. You don't have to buy them from Italy. There's always some American supplier that can get you something pretty close. And here's a styling element I think is pretty cool. I think Honda and everybody else copied this. This piece of glass right below the rear window, so you can see right behind you. You can see right through the windshield. You can see my hand all the way through the back. That's kind of cool. And of course, those twin exhausts, the 4 pipes, I mean, that's, it doesn't get more Italian than that. I think Espada means sword, if I'm not mistaken. And your battery, and underneath, there's your spare tire. Right under here, there's your dynamat, as I mentioned. And under this is your battery. There's our battery, all-important battery disconnect switch. You always want to have that in any older Italian car, because as I said, the wiring can get pretty dicey. But it's a good idea in any car to do it. And we put a C-Tech battery charger on each one of these, and they last forever. Now, normally this would fasten under the spare tire here, and this would go over that. But for right now, just do it like that. But there was nothing wrong with this car mechanically. It was just the cosmetics, you know, after, God, I've owned it 30 years. So the car is now, my God, 50 years old. So it's, but it still runs and drives like a new car. I mean, it's a little heavier than a modern car. It doesn't have power steering, but it's got air conditioning. In fact, what we did is we took out the original air conditioning unit, which was like this big, and we put in one of our vintage air units that we use in all our cars. They're fantastic. They're small, they're compact, they blow a lot colder. They really work really well. Something that's interesting but annoying, you have one filler here, and you have another filler here, and they're joined by a little tube. So when you're at the gas station, you put it in here, and then you drag the hose all the way over to here, and then you realize it only goes to here, and then you have to go, excuse me, and have to pull out, turn around, go around the pump on the other side while people give you the finger. It's a little annoying, but it holds 24 gallons of gas, which sounds like a lot, but gas mileage is not one of the attributes of this car. When you put your foot in it, you're probably down pretty close to single digits, 11, something like that, 12. But it makes a glorious noise, you know. You know, if a symphony orchestra is great, who cares how much it costs? That's right. Come on, let's open the hood. And this is a huge piece. You don't want to damage this. You're not going to find one of these hoods anywhere. Now, as I mentioned, we did a mechanical restoration about 10, might be 15 years ago. The real trick to Italian cars, and this could be an old wives' tale, but it always works for me. Italian cars are built in Italy, and Italy is warm. And consequently, oil passages, the passage where the oil goes through, are somewhat tiny. And when you have an Italian car like this in a cold climate like New England or any place else where there's snow or it gets below 0, you get in that engine and you rev it up, and the oil is thick, and it's got to go through those small passages, and consequently, you can starve the engine. The real trick to an Italian car, Alfa Romeo, Ferrari, I don't care what it is, you turn the key, you let it warm up, and you really don't drive away until it comes off the peg. Once you see it off the peg, then you're all set to go. Then the engine is warm, then you're not stressing it, then you're not hurting the motor. I've always done that, and it's worked for me. My Countach has well over 70,000 miles on it. This has got, it's got to be over 100,000 now, because for a while the speedometer was out, and it was my only car for a number of years. So that's work for me. Just, you know, don't get in there and rev it up and rev it up. When you're forcing cold, thick oil through these tiny oil passages, you can wind up starving the bearings. So that's what I do. I start it up, rev it gently, let it warm up, do something, listen to a song on the radio, make a phone call, do what I have to do, and then drive away, and you'll always be okay. As you can see, everything is pretty straightforward. There's our vintage air conditioning unit that I spoke about earlier. Still got the original style air cleaners. I like to keep it stock under the hood. This is your, of course, your clutch and your brake and master cylinders as well. Fuses are under there. We've cleaned up the wiring a little bit, but it still looks kind of Italian. As you see, we dynamatted everything. That stuff works great, makes a great insulator, both for noise and heat. And that's about it under the hood. 4-liter engine, 3.9 to be technical, but they call it 4 liters. About 300 and, what was it? I think it's 350 horsepower. That's, I think, what I'm getting out of this thing now. You want to, oh, let's put it down there. Not a lot of chrome on the car. Not overly done. As you see, body by Bertone, but penned originally Marcello Gandini. I think this was his most creative period in the 60s, when he was a young man, still in his 20s and early 30s. He's just one of my favorite designers. In fact, he was here at the garage. I got a picture of him and me on the wall. Let me show it to you. Well, it's probably time to take it for a ride. As I said, this car does not have power steering because it's an early series too. Power steering later became available. Espada, as I said before, means sword. That's what the matador would use to kill the bull. You know, Lamborghini was born under the sign of Taurus the bull. His birthday was the same as mine, April 28th. Except he's 100. I'm just close to 100. But what a wonderful sounding engine this is. This was just the thing for a sort of flying across continents in Europe, you know, getting there on the Autobahn and running flat out with 3 other people and their luggage. Hilarious. It tracks nice, straight and through. I always hear that these cars are a nightmare, but you know, that's always because somebody does a fix on a fix. If you put it back the way it was, they're pretty good. And of course, climate has a lot to do with it too. Being a California car, it never got rusty, it never got damp. So that probably added another 20 years to the life of the car. We redid the whole interior, as you can see, in the original saddle tan. It looks very nice, I think. When Gandini designed this car, he took some of his inspiration from 2 show cars. One was the Lamborghini Marzal, and the other was the Jaguar Piranha, a car we featured on this website last year or so. It was a Jaguar that had been commissioned by the Daily Telegraph, or one of the English newspapers, and it had a lot of Espada type features on it. When you realize this car is nearly 50 years old, and it has a lot of the old school things on it, like to turn on the heater, you reach under the dash and you literally open a water faucet valve to allow hot water to go through the heater, but you have to do that manually. You know, it's interesting now, all cars, they take it to the Nürburgring and they tell you what time it did, and people base their value judgment of the car based on the Nürburgring. But you know, a car like this is meant to be long-legged and just take huge distances in a single stride. It's really a wonderful car to drive. I mean, look how low it is compared to all the traffic around me. It's really hilarious. And when this came out in 1969, oh my God, there was nothing like it. It really caused a sensation. As I said, they built, well, some people say 1,221 Other people say 1,217. But in any event, it was the most popular Lamborghini ever up until the modern era. This is my favorite era of Lamborghini, the Series 2, the Series 2 Espada. The Series 3 had different wheels on it, and it had the big bumpers, and a few other safety features. I like this one because it has no safety features of any kind. But you downshift, you step on the gas, it's like an Italian opera. 120 miles an hour, like that. It's just so seamless. Since I knew we were going to drive this car today, we had meatball sandwiches for lunch. Fantastic meatballs, a little bit of ground beef, a little bit of lamb, a little bit of pork. Fantastic. It's amazing how some cars look like big boats next to you on the highway. Like this one. Look at that thing. You got this nice big steering wheel, which makes turning easier also. A lot of cars have these little tiny wheels. They're more like dials. I like a big steering wheel. My 62 Porsche Carrera 2 has the same sort of big wheel, and it's wood. I like a nice wood steering wheel. You almost feel like you're in Sicily with these hills here in California. Probably the greatest attribute about this car is the amount of legroom you have. You know, for tall guys or big Americans or giant Germans, this thing is perfect. You got just all kinds of room. Back seat's not much worse than any other four-seater car. Here's the odd thing, I've never really had a Lamborghini overheat on me. I know some people complained about the Miuras overheating, but Miuras have a bleed valve that you should always bleed maybe, well, if you haven't driven the car in a while. You start the car up, you open the bleed valve, you hear the air come out. As soon as water comes out, you shut it, and you run cool. I've never had this thing overheat. It's about 85 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe 90 degrees Fahrenheit today. It's a pretty hot day in California. This thing's running dead center on the temperature gauge. To me, this is what Italian cars are all about. I just love the feel of this car. I love the smell. I love the old school compared with the new school. I mean, this styling was really revolutionary when it came out, yet it was built the old school way. Guys, you know, bang, bang with hammers and a valve by hand. You open the heater to turn the water on and off. And at the time, it was pretty advanced. Electric windows, air conditioning. This is not something Italian cars had, especially Italian supercars back in the day. I mean, Ferrari in the 60s reluctantly put air conditioning on some of the stuff, but it wasn't a complete package the way this was. Ferruccio's whole idea was to build an Italian luxury car. I mean, he liked his Ferraris, but he thought in some ways they were crude because they were basically racing cars through the street. You know, Enzo was a race car driver, and he just built street cars to finance his racing, whereas Lamborghini wanted to build true grand touring cars. Come on, hop in next to me, and we'll show you what it's like from the inside. As you can see, you got a nice big panoramic windshield. It's fantastic. Thin A-pillar. Not the best thing in a rollover, but hey, style is everything. There's your tachometer right there, your oil temperature, your fuel gauge, your water temperature, your oil pressure, your ammeter, and of course your speedometer over here. Your horn is right here on this stalk. Very Italian horn. Let's start at that end of the car. They got your glove box right there. Of course, a modern radio with Bluetooth and all that. These are rear stats. These are your window switches left and right. Cigarette lighter, very Italian, of course. Your air vents, your clock, headlights, wipers, and assorted internal lights and auxiliary fans, driving lights, gear shift lever, of course. That little valve I talked about under the dashboard. is right under here. Just looks like a hot water valve. You have on a radiator at home. You just open it, the hot air flows through the heater, and you turn on the heater. Fluids are very important to Italian cars. It's like the marinara sauce when you have dinner. You can't have spaghetti without the marinara sauce. You can't have an Italian car without good fluids. Change your brake fluid, change your water in your radiator, your antifreeze, and of course all the other ones as well. You got a pretty good view of what's in front of you. It's not how fast you go in this car, although this car does go fast, and how it makes you feel while you're driving. And it's such a relaxing, such a communicative car to drive. That's what makes it fun. Very manly gearbox, you know, you kind of grab it and push it over, and it's a bit agricultural, but I like that. It gives it a real heft. You feel like you're in the hills of Sicily. All I need is somebody throwing meatballs at me, and I feel right at home. Although it sounds cliche, this car really does lighten up at speed. The faster you go, the lighter and more secure it feels. I'm not sure how they came up with this steering wheel. I think they took an extra large pizza pan and said, yeah, that's a good sized pizza. Okay, and then you just drive it. I like the wooden lever right here. It's got the indentations for your fingers. Well, I hope you enjoyed what has been a 30-year journey for me with this car, and it's actually 30 years this year. You know, if you Google Espada, there's no shortage of videos of this car. Not this one particularly, but I mean, especially other automotive people. Harry Medcalf, the great English writer, he's got a great video. I think he did it for Evo magazine, where he drove 1,000 miles from Italy back to England in his. Aaron Robinson, the technical editor of Car and Driver magazine, he's got one. Took him 7 years to restore his. Actually, he's had two. And he's got a great video if you want to watch that one. But there's tons of them. There's people that bought them 100% restored, people that have bought them as wrecks and tried to fix them up and gotten terribly frustrated. Every now and then somebody puts a Chevy engine in one. Not popular at the club meetings. No. But anyway, I just wanted to show you what it was like. We show you the restoration. We show you how we went through it. And I hope you enjoyed this ride as much as I did. So we'll see you guys next week.
Mm-hmm.